This video is going to talk about hyphens. Hyphens are confusing to a lot of people, and hyphen problems are very, very common in student writing. So let's see if we can sort out some of the problems and find out how to fix them. First thing we're going to talk about is hyphens in compound words. In compound nouns, it's hard to know if there's a hyphen needed or not. Some words you just have to know. Some compound words are one word, like rowboat. Some are separate words, like hard drive, and then some do require hyphens, like sister-in-law. Sometimes you just have to learn which kind is which. Compound adjectives, most of them are going to have a hyphen. You're going to hyphenate the ones that precede a noun, but not those that follow a noun. Let's look at the example. If you have a well-liked boss, that uses a hyphen. If your boss is well-liked, that doesn't use a hyphen. If you have a 6-foot plank, you use a hyphen. But if you say the plank is 6 feet long, you don't use a hyphen. In general, the reason for hyphenating compound adjectives is to make it easier to read and understand what's meant. Look at the example here. Designers often use potted plants as living room dividers. Now, if we didn't have the hyphen, we might think living is modifying room dividers. So then we'd have living like alive room dividers. And that could work, but it's not what the writer meant in this particular sentence. You always are going to use hyphens when you're writing out fractions or when you're spelling out compound numbers between 21 and 99. Like the examples I have here. 1/7 uses a hyphen. 2 7/16 hyphenated. 37, use a hyphen in that too. 354,000. Now the reason, even though that's a much larger number than 99, the 54 is the part that's hyphenated, and that does come between 21 and 99. Now we're going to talk about hyphens with prefixes and suffixes. Most words containing prefixes and suffixes are written without hyphens. If you look at the example, anti-war or Romanesque. But there's exceptions, and it's important to know what those exceptions are. Now, if you're putting a prefix in front of a capitalized base word, you need to hyphenate. The example, un-American. American is a capitalized word, so when you put a prefix in front of it, like un, you need to use a hyphen. The same with the next example, non-Catholic. Catholic is capitalized, so when you put a prefix in front of it, you need to use a hyphen. If you're using figures, figures means numbers. In the examples pre-1960, you're using a prefix in front of 1960. Post-1945, again, you're using a prefix in front of 1945. And for that to make sense, you're going to need a hyphen. You're also going to use a hyphen with certain prefixes and suffixes. All-state, ex-partner, self-possessed, quasi-legislative, mayor-elect, and 50-odd. If you don't use hyphens in those, completely changes the meaning. So it's important to always use hyphens when you use all, ex, self, quasi. Those are important prefixes that need hyphens. The suffix elect, like president-elect, mayor-elect, chairman-elect, all of those are going to need hyphens. Otherwise, it completely changes the meaning. 50-odd, if you're using something like that, you're not using odd as like an odd number like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You're using it to mean 50 and then some. So 50-odd would be in between 50 and 60, but you put that all in one word by saying odd. Use a hyphen for that. If you're using compound base words, like high school, if you're talking about something that happens before high school, using a prefix, you would say pre-high school. If you're talking about the Cold War, that's a compound base word. Post-Cold War. It helps solidify the meaning in the reader's mind so it's not confusing. And this is just for clarity. Let's look at some examples here. Let's look at the word recover. Recover means to cover again. The hyphen tells us the difference between recover and recover, which means to get well. If you're recovering from an illness, it's different than recovering your sofa. Then we have anti-inflation. We really need to put a hyphen in between our prefix and inflation, otherwise we're going to have a bunch of vowels stuck together and it makes it hard to read. The same thing with the next example, troll-like. Without the hyphen, we'd have 3 L's back to back, and that's too many consonants. It makes it really difficult to read. Now let's look at some unnecessary uses of hyphens. This is probably where most people get into trouble. Most people will put hyphens in if they don't know if it's supposed to have one or not. You don't want to hyphenate parts of a two-word verb like depend on, turn off, or tune out. Look at the example. Each player must pick up a medical form before football tryouts. The words pick up are one verb. They shouldn't be hyphenated. But you do need to make sure that the two words are functioning as one verb. If they're functioning as an adjective, you might need a hyphen. So let's look at some examples using the same two words. Let's sign up for the early class. Sign up is a verb, so you don't use a hyphen. But if you ask a question, where is the sign-up sheet? Sign up is now an adjective modifying sheet. It does need a hyphen in that case. So now I hope that hyphens are easier to use correctly in your writing.